welcome to KeyedIn with James and Dan. This is episode 3, a product of KeyBridge Interactive. Again, you can find our website at interactive.keybridge.us.
Nailed it.
Last time we were talking about AI. We're continuing that discussion if you saw our last episode. Today we'll be talking about a couple more use cases and maybe some, negative connotations of AI. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, James. Welcome back. I had a couple more things to talk about as far as use cases go. I think, and you hit this a little bit last episode, talking about foundational knowledge of a topic, especially complex topics. I found it I find using these platforms as a tutor is a great way to customize to my knowledge base and to get me up to speed in whatever it is. So for example, especially in a very specific use case, right? So if I try to look up a topic, say, for example, I am looking up electrical code, right? And I'm looking up something very specific to my house, to equipment I have, and to whatever setup that I'm trying to do. I can put all of that information in and then ask very specific questions for my use case, and then ask ChatGPT or whatever to cross-reference and do. A lot of these platforms have a deep research availability as well, which I don't really quite know what, other than it takes longer. I don't know what the benefit is other than it sits there and thinks longer.
More dots.
Yeah, just more dots. Yeah. But it convinces me that it's actually is working. It's burning more trees in the process of thinking about.
The AI is actually thinking to itself like, show more dots.
More dots, yeah. And what will happen is I will get a fairly nuanced response to my specific situation. Now, it's also up to me to go back and cross-reference that and make sure that that's correct, right? And to QA that answer. And I think a lot of this, if you're gonna plug something in ChatGPT and then go turn it in, that's on you.
Yeah.
Right. I think all of these require a level of supervision because it's like dealing with a really, really smart 2-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, it has an emotional intelligence of like a 2-year-old. It wants to please you. It's gonna, but it doesn't really have the discerning factors that you need it whenever you're looking at the end result. So I think making sure that, in a lot of ways you end up being like an editor, right? And you already have this, whatever it is, product 90% of the way, and you want a little bit of polish. That's another use case. So I think on either end, it works really well, right? The very beginning, as far as like base knowledge, and then at the very end, being able to like polish that.
Yeah.
Or like ideation. I still think for ideation, and I know you're maybe on the fence is not the right term, but I really like that early ideation of, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. Where's my starting point?
I don't have anything against it. I think it's really good as like a spark for inspiration, because it'll give you a bunch of things that I don't necessarily like, but it does make me think like, oh, I do not like these, and it'll force me to like go in a direction, I think.
And that's a good point. And a lot of it's, especially that early ideation, is pretty garbage.
Yeah.
Right. But it does give you it gives you a starting point.
I'm trying to think of, do you remember any of the bad podcast titles it gave us?
No, I don't. I'd have to look back at that.
See, that's how bad they were. They're so...
Oh, they're completely forgettable.
Yeah.
They're completely and generic.
Yeah.
And you hit on that last episode, the beginning of last episode. You mentioned, it's very generic and mediocre. It's average, right?
Yeah.
It's mediocre. I don't think you're going to get anything that truly wows you.
Yeah.
I don't use it as a creative lens, right?
Yeah.
It's not very good at that.
I think there is a reason it's not very good for that. This is because artists, or like if we're talking about art specifically or anything creative, you do it from a place that has a desire at all. You have something to say.
Yeah.
And then ChatGPT has a prompt, but doesn't really have any desires or whatever. It doesn't have a point of view, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely factual information. Being able to aggregate large data sets. That's another thing that we didn't really talk about.
Yeah.
Especially with like spreadsheets and being able to pull out trends in spreadsheets that aren't apparent. That's useful as well. Being able to upload large data sets and it being able to spit out, okay, here's some trends and here's why. Being able to compare things.
Yeah.
Comparison work, it does pretty good.
I want to feed it all my journals from the last 5 years and then have it write 5 years of horoscopes for me based on my life trajectory.
It'd shut down. It would shut down. But yeah, I mean, that's, I think those are still some really valid use cases. So, I think, just in general, AI is not going to solve all the world's problems. I think that's been proven. I think there's a lot of hyperbole on both sides, right? That AI is going to, or this kind of technology is going to, end the world as we know it. And the other side is like, oh, well, this is just a growing fad that's going to fall off once investment money gets bored.
Yeah.
And so I think it is. I think we'd be remiss without hitting some of the hot topics surrounding this technology. Not just a use case, which we've hit somewhat, but also global implications, right? Societal implications of using this technology. I have a list of some of these things. And I tried to, and I sat down and I did a little bit of research. I did not use AI to do this research on positives and concerning, positive applications. So, like medical field, right? Being able to enhancing the medical field as far as like radiology results, of being able to more accurately find tumors in radiology results or other like anomalies that doctors could miss. I think some of that stuff is fascinating. Or or being able to upload and describe medical history. And then it using instead of just that doctor's knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that's available to be able to diagnose a problem.
Yeah.
I think that some of those are super fascinating and positive. Accessibility improvements. A lot of the use of this technology, especially with the camera and voice and being able to talk to an AI assistant and using a camera for people with disabilities. I think that's also, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think about me as I get older, right? Using some of this, right? Of being able to, maybe my sight is failing and being able to use this technology to navigate better around the world, right? Because I'm not inherently accustomed to that, right? Because I've lost my sight. And in general, I think it enhances the abilities that we are as humans bring to the platform. right? It's an enhancement as long as you're using it within the realms of, it's possible, and what it's good at. I think some of the environmental concerns, going into concerns, so environmental impact, right? That's a big one. The amount of electricity this is using for it to answer whatever dumb question I'm throwing into Perplexity.
Yeah.
Right. That is just something that is a foundational knowledge topic that I really shouldn't have to use an LLM for.
Yeah.
What is the cost there, right?
Yeah.
For a curiosity.
I thought that I had this conversation with my mom because she's older and doesn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
So I was talking to her about how much water like these data centers use.
Yeah.
And like using it to write something or me writing something, I was like, well, I'm going to drink that water anyway. I'll just drink the water, write this myself.
Yeah. The water, the electricity use, I mean, it's insane. And I don't have numbers here. Again, do your own research, right? Do your own research on some of this. Some of the concerns with the psychological and behavioral profiling of all of this information that we are putting back into these LLMs are also being captured, right? And how human behavior and how they interact with these machines. And you have to imagine, just like all of the rest of our data that is tracked and captured, and someone is twisting their mustache at the end of this chain and is wondering how they can make money off of it, right?
I don't know much about that person, but I do know he has an evil mustache.
That's right. Yeah. So, there's that concern of privacy concerns, and we hit it on a little bit of not only the privacy, but just the uploading of all of the creative content of human history into this machine, right? Into this huge, and I use machine just as a relative term.
If we had AI generative art from the inception of art, do you think like Picasso would like come up with cubism, or do you think that would cubism probably wouldn't be something like AI would develop on its own?
So that's interesting because a lot of people, this recursive cycle of, well, if AI is just taking human creativity and remixing it, at what point do we hit the end of, there's no more input, right?
Yeah.
So it just becomes a recursive cycle of the same content, and there is no more innovation, right? I don't know where I stand on any of that eventually.
Yeah.
At least in gaming, whenever these simulations that are run, these AI simulations that are run in gaming, and the perceived evolution over time, where it's the computer trying to solve one problem over and over and over again, and they run the simulation, like thousands of times.
Yeah.
And they slowly watch this evolution of understanding, and solving and creative problem solving over time. And that's not what we're talking about with this LLM. That's a different AI model. But you have to using that as a metric, right? Of as a use case. You have to wonder if there is a point where this inflection point where it can truly be creative, right? These AI, these algorithms can truly start being creative.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what it does. Like, just think of things like in terms of like filmmaking. Yeah, I could read all this stuff, but then would it make Blair Witch Project it's like another thing, like all these like kind of oddball kind of formats.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would, but it'd probably make a really generic version of a generic Disney movie, like more.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, but would they? Yeah, I don't know. Now, no, absolutely. I would argue no.
Yeah.
Like where we're at now, absolutely not. Like I don't think any of these. And any of these, you said off the wall, but any of these like, again, it goes back to your original, like these non-traditional outlook or takes on our experience. Can it truly work outside the box?
Yeah.
Right. Can it take anything that's out? And my understanding is no. Right. It only can use the data set that it has.
Yeah.
Instead of this data set that's outside of the box. That doesn't exist in its reality.
Yeah.
Is my limited understanding. This is starting to get some metaphysical lane that don't know if I'm equipped to answer.
I feel like I'm just sound like an AI hater right now. I think
it's fair though. I think there's plenty of skeptics, right? I think that I'm skeptical just because I use and I think that's important. I think using the platform and understanding what it does, I think hiding under a rock and ignoring it is the wrong solution, right? That's not a solution at all. That's ignoring the problem. I think getting in there and using these platforms and seeing what they're actually capable of, seeing what the limitations are, seeing what the benefits are.
Yeah.
And then you're able to have hopefully a educated conversation.
Yeah.
But that's why we're doing this part 2, because I think it's important to bring up the negative outcomes of this technology.
I know offhand you had mentioned something about consent, artist consent, or just like individual consent. If you wanted to like.
Well, I mean, it's copyright law and where that is right now. I think my understanding is it's still working through the court system, and I don't know where this lands. Right? Of like, how do you prove? So if I ask ChatGPT to create, or DALL-E or whatever, to create an image in the likeness of someone else's art style.
Yeah.
Right? What does that mean? Like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think at some point the artist should be compensated, but how does that process even work? Right? That's so outside of my limited understanding on how any of that works or how society would work. The problem is that all of this content is already sucked into the system.
Yeah.
And if I know anything, any kind of like censoring of content isn't the answer either, right? So then it's like, well, do you do some kind of like, this is 90% close to this thing, so we can't show. I mean, I don't know.
I think
I don't know what the
artist communities are in general one of the most exploited communities that ever existed.
Yes.
And for these things to kind of exist now, it almost makes you not want to create anything because you don't want to get exploited. But I think that would be also a terrible future for everybody, for like all art to stop, all human created art to stop.
Well, I would even go a step further of just like even using these platforms of you are consenting to all of this. So I think about all the projects that I have, all of the queries that I put into these platforms, my thought process, the solutions that I come up with, in tandem with this,
it's like learning from you as well.
Yeah, none of that is now mine. That is all of that mental energy that I put in is now sucked into the system. I no longer own that.
Yeah.
Right. And my habits, that goes into the whole another concept of surveillance, right? And surveillance cameras and, like Walmart and Home Depot and how, with AI comparison, identification, as you walk into Walmart, your ID, this is my understanding, I just watched a video on this fairly recently. They are tracking not only who you are, but, purchases that you've recently made, where you go in the store, and all that information is aggregated through these AI models. The flock surveillance cameras, have you heard of those? It's a huge network of surveillance cameras across the U.S. that law enforcement use, but also that content is brokered out to other companies. It's brokered out to law enforcement outside of those municipalities. And I'm all for, keeping our streets safe for sure, but I want that information to stay within the law enforcement agencies, not to by local, again, mustache twirling profiteer.
I think the ideal perspective is like that information is being used responsibly and for the specific thing that it's like created for.
There's on YouTube, there's a guy, Ben Jordan, with 2 N's. I think he's fairly popular. I don't know. You do your own research on this stuff. Go look up some of his videos. The flock camera phenomenon. So my wife's a defense lawyer, and they have a case about these cameras that they are working through right now. I mean, there's a lot of these cases going on of the legality of tracking, suspects' cars across state lines, and a lot of it is profiling, is my understanding. I don't know. Again, do your own research. So some of that stuff is shady at best, right? It starts blurring the lines of, is this really improving our society, or is it looking more like this? We're under a surveillance state.
Yeah. Let me ask Rock what he thinks.
Yeah.
Also, just like we were talking about consent, artist consent, like all Adobe products kind of like look at every user's work now, which I think is terrifying. And I don't think most artists would want to consent to that. But these tools are so ubiquitous, it's hard not to use these Adobe tools.
Yeah. Especially if you're using their cloud service. Now all of your content's in there.
That's crazy. It's like things that you could just be using to just develop your own style for your own, like not everything anybody ever creates is meant to be for commercial use or even for like to be shared even. But now like you're part of the zeitgeist. I think that's like pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. To what end? I mean, and if it's, it creates an environment where people no longer want to be creative because it's no longer safe, for lack of a better word, or they start migrating away from those tools, right? And then we go back to a non-digital medium.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone starts breaking out their paper again.
Oil painting.
Yeah. There you go. Go ahead.
Like likeness is another thing I think like we need to talk about. Like especially we were talking about AI voice acting in the last episode.
Yeah.
We could like steal voices. Famous like actors out of jobs. I know nobody cares about actors, but I do.
Well, I mean, not only as people have started talking about, make sure that you have a safe word with your family. So if they ever get a phone call from you, they're going to ask for that safe word so they know it's really you. Yeah. And that's kind of the world and maybe that sounds far-fetched, but maybe not. If I call my family up and say, hey, I'm in deep trouble, please wire me,
Don't say that on a podcast.
Yeah, right. But they're not going to have this by, our secret word, right? A family's secret word.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of stuff is terrifying.
Yeah.
Fake ransoms and, any way to people can exploit this technology, propaganda.
Yeah.
Right. And, wherever you are in the political spectrum, like, I still don't think that you want propaganda.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Or, I don't think that should be in the playbook of, propaganda through the lens of AI created content that's not true. Like lies and propaganda is it's hard to have a society without rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Some of this stuff starts edging into the, and I'm assuming only a small percentage of bad actors that are perpetrating some of this. At least my understanding, and I don't know how ubiquitous this is, but I bet the next election cycle we're going to see a whole bunch more of this, right? And maybe it's not even reported on. Like, I don't know, right? Or maybe it isn't as big of a deal as I would think.
I think there's been some, even in the last election cycle, because I remember I had some older people in my family commenting on some images that weren't actually real.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a tough conversation to have.
Yeah. Right. And so then once you start eroding the trust in anything you see, then nothing's real. And if nothing's real, then what can you believe, right? So then I don't know. I don't know. I guess in general, I think there's a lot of societal questions surrounding all of that. How is that rules of conduct, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? Yeah, workplace transformation. I think that's a whole other. We talked in the first episode about our culture here a little bit, and we've talked a little bit about using AI for narration.
Yeah.
But how do we navigate this space of like, all right, well, if we can be X more efficient with fewer people and more AI use, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Right? And is that a thing? Right? I really haven't seen that there hasn't been a measurable benefit, at least the work we do, for to reduce number of individuals, right? To reduce workforce as we move and try to figure out what our use cases are, and how it affects, right? Like, does this, I think we've proven that we can't replace writers with yet, James, because there isn't the trust factor. Like, I can't let it write an email without, some severe rework at times, and maybe that's not every time, but it's enough to where I pause of like, how useful is this? How useful is this tool if it's going to take me X amount of time to have to go back and polish it?
Yeah. I think it also just makes you disconnected from what you're doing or the reasons you're doing things. If I didn't apologize I don't have a girlfriend currently, but if I had a girlfriend, I was texting her, it's like, write me an apology text. And then it could do that. But then I think over time, you just get really disconnected from even just anything like the work we're doing here. If we use it to create all these components for our work, would we even know what we're working on at that point? Or would we even feel invested in it? I think relying on AI over time makes you disconnected and less invested in maybe the world around you and what you're doing. And I think that's terrifying.
At the end of the day, it's almost just like if you reduce it down just to pressing a button, if it really is, if all we're talking about is a human that's pressing the AI button over and over again, like in some factory, why do we even need the human?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good question.
Yeah. And we're okay with the mediocrity of the output.
Yeah.
Then, what's the point, right? What's the point of doing all this? And what we do, we build fairly bespoke experiences. And if we've relied on the AI output, I think, I know our products would be extraordinarily less effective than if it was whole cloth from AI, or even partial cloth from AI. Not only the I think some of the concepting stuff is great, and again, that's that early work stuff is great, but the cohesiveness of the product that we develop, and the story that we tell, I think, has to be, at least now, developed by humans.
Yeah.
and it shows. I mean, you can tell. I mean, and you could read some of the AI slop, and or see an image, right? And go online now, and a lot of the ads are use AI imagery. It has the same like shiny quality, like plasticky shiny quality.
Something that looks nice now looks cheap because like everything looks nice. So like the cheap, it's like,
Anyway, well, I think that's our take right now on where AI stands, at least in our workflow and our personal lives. So James, what's your conclusion? Are you going to still dabble? Where are you going to keep it at arm's length and let it cry away? Or
I'll dabble. I think in certain instances it's fun. Like it's cute to me, and I don't want to be dismissive. Like it is a very powerful tool. Like, but it just has to be. I got to use it responsibly for myself, just so my brain doesn't atrophy. And yeah, I don't want to take credit for things I didn't create too. So like,
absolutely.
As an artist,
feels bad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to play around with it. I still think that early informational on-ramp is where I think I use it the most as a very powerful on-ramping within my understanding of the natural world, and be able to ramp up and it's cheesy as it is in the Matrix. Like, I know Kung Fu. Not quite like that, but way faster than just an initial Google of what is X. It gets me to where I need to be in the time that I need it to be. The rest of it, we'll see. And I guess that's all we can say is keep monitoring and see what happens, and find it, apply it where it's useful.
You heard it here, folks. Well, that wraps up our episode for episode 3.
3.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sticking with us this long. Yeah. And we got more good content coming in the future.
Thanks so much.